Hello everyone. The title of my talk today is Monsters in the Feed, the core socialities around invasive species, and I'm developing this project with my colleague Rubab Batul. So what you're looking in the screen is a screenshot from a popular wildlife YouTube channel in the US called Python Cowboy that is operated by a professional hunter known as Trapper Mike in southern Florida. So we can see a trapped snake that is videoed through a smartphone. So this channel is actually all about the invasive species of southern Florida and the way and the mandate may be to exterminate them. The channel has millions of followers across different platforms and regularly posts videos of pythons, green iguanas, and hogs that are being hunted, captured, and very often killed. Now, what impressed me when I first encountered this channel and when I started researching invasive species was not only the graphic nature of the content, so the pythons and the snakes being pulled out of nests and the iguanas shown brutalized, but the fact that this type of gore is not only permitted by the platform but also celebrated by thousands of viewers in the comments. So the killing is not hidden, is not controversial, but instead framed as a moral good. So, so the research is driven by research questions such as how are these particular animals rendered ecologically misplaced, and how does this rendering legitimize their killing and its spectacular circulation line, and what kinds of political identifications around nativity, masculinity, duty, heroism, enable the celebration of animal death in digital media environments. But first, let me briefly situate the ecological context. So the Everglades is a sort of ecosystem in southern Florida, as we said, and it's home to several species that are classified as invasive. So here are some screenshots from the channel that I'm looking at, showing some of these species, such as the python and the green iguana. As I already mentioned. So the python was introduced via the exotic pet trade in the late 20th century and is said to decimate native population of birds and mammals, including species that are from an anthropocentric view considered as more charismatic than reptiles, like raccoons and opossums. And similarly, the green iguana has been imported as pets. Several of them escaped or were released and built substantial populations. So this is a common story across geographies, I would say, not only with iguanas, but several other species that have been introduced as pets. But the killing of these animals is not only permitted, but is incentivized and encouraged by the state. So in 2019, the conservative governor Ron DeSantis inaugurated the so-called Florida Python Challenge, or the Python Bowl, where participants compete to remove the highest number of pythons. So in 2020, the protagonist of our YouTube channel, Trapper Mike, won the first prize, celebrating his victory on Instagram as an opportunity to go out and help our state's ecosystem, giving praise to the Lord and the swamp that always provides. So this was a quote. In these state-sponsored games, hunting is transformed into an ethical labor, so protecting biodiversity, or our species, becomes a sort of responsible stewardship of taxpayer money. And this material reality of ecological conflict, because ecological conflict does exist, as we shall see in a moment, becomes heavily narrativized through these types of channels in digital media, um, celebrating and sort of pure idea of what an ecosystem should look like. Now, the theoretical framework for this study brings together a number of approaches. So we draw on the concept of matter out of place by Mary Douglas. Um, so the invasive species can be understood as a sort of ecological dirt, so as organisms that endanger the imagined purity of a native ecosystem, as their presence is framed as a violation of this imagined order. Second, Akaben's concept George Akaben's concept of the state of exception is useful insofar as these animals exist as living beings for whom the normal, moral, and regulatory protections afforded to other animals are suspended. They are monsters, ecological monsters, if you want, from the perspective of monster theory, whose bodies function as types of cultural anxiety, provoking fears of contamination, imbalance, and loss of control. We also use the perspective of 𝗔𝗀𝘀𝘁𝗁, and especially to speak about how chains of equivalence, so different signifiers coming together articulated together into a hegemonic discourse, express a sort of politics of nativity. Also, it's important to recognize that there is, as we said, a material dimension, so there is a real ecological antagonism between species competing for resources in Everglades. So there's no point to deny that. But what we're focusing on is the ways that these material antagonisms are organized, narrated, and made meaningful through discourse. So, what is emphasized, what's highlighted, and what is omitted. Now, in terms of the analytical strategy, we mainly employ multimodal discourse analysis that we combine with the discourse theory of 𝗔𝗀𝘀𝘁𝗁. So we look at the 20 latest videos featuring pythons and iguanas from the YouTube channel of Python Cowboy. We selected these videos in terms of them being the most recent uploads. We treated each video as a sort of multimodal text, and we analyzed it according to the three different levels of Kress and Van Leeuwen. We asked questions related to representation, so who is granted narrative agency, who is reduced to a conceptual category. In terms of the interaction, the interactive level, we focused on perspective, gaze, social distance, so who looks at whom, from which perspective, how does the viewer get interpolated. So in terms of composition, we examined salience, so what is made prominent, how elements may be grouped or separated, looking at thumbnails or titles as sort of curated sites of meaning, insofar as they circulate in such platforms as visible traces, let's say, of the channel's content competing for clicks. We came up to this idea of the necropolitical nativity. And we located 4 discourses that are emerging from the material. I'm going to speak about all 4 of them. So the first of them is the discourse of killability and monstrification, which concerns the construction of the pythons and the iguanas as killable entities through this process of monstrification. So the label invasive already does half the job there. So as the anthropologist Jonathan Clark notes, this very label relieves hunters and audiences of the moral complexities associated with killing other animals. Since we know that if we kill invasives, some other organisms which happen to be natives may flourish. So the channel amplifies this through systematic generalization and massification of this invasive. So certainly the animals are reduced to numbers or to things such as reproductive danger or to size, the monstrous size of the python and so on. Of course, they are not named, unlike the other animals featured in these videos, who are the dogs, who all have names and personalities. No invasive animal, of course, is granted interiority. No one asks how they would feel, or how a mother python may feel when her eggs are destroyed, for instance. Also, it's interesting that the reptiles that we're looking here produce almost no sound during capture. So even as their bodies are shown brutalized, their very silence reinforces their construction as non-subject, so as matter that can be easily removed without resistance. So this nodal point of invasive condenses a chain of equivalence that links foreignness, uncontrolled reproduction, destruction, silence, coldness, and so on, fixing these animals as undesirable matter, as matter out of place, rendering the removal not only acceptable but also necessary for the ecosystem to flourish. Now, the second discourse, which we titled Vigilante Stewardship and Patriotic Duty, constructs hunting as a sort of civic and even sacred duty. So Trapper Mike may describe his work as groundbreaking and also a work that continues with the next generation. So there is a sort of generationally transmitted craftsmanship that is at play there, and especially in relation to his dogs, as we shall see later. One of his favorite dogs, Otto, at some point during these years dies, and then he trains the rest of the dogs that he has to take the place of Otto. So this is a type of craft that the dogs have to learn. So how to remove invasive species becomes a sort of serious, ongoing, and even civilizational labor, if you want. Now, it's very often that the Trapper Mike, so the Python cowboy, speaks in a sort of direct frontal gaze to the camera, especially when explained what has happened in these excursions of killing iguanas and pythons. So it is what Kress and Van Leeuwen call a demand image. So he looks at you, he is composed, authoritative, accountable, so interpellates the viewer as a fellow citizen, as a fellow stakeholder in ecological and national restoration. So the chain of equivalence here links hunter, dog, signifiers as hunter, dog, state, taxpayer, and even God on the one side, and on the other, the invaders are associated with ecological threat, uncontrolled reproduction, and moral transgression. So conservation becomes a sort of patriotism, and hunting becomes a form of duty. It's also interesting to observe the absent discourses from these discussions. So there is no discussion of climate change, for instance, or of the pet trade that brought these animals to Florida in the first place. This is also crucial to point out what is absent from this discourse in order to understand how the politics of nativity are sort of structuring these audiovisual texts. Now, the third discourse that we identified concerns the construction of masculinity. So we try to see it from a gender perspective. This is a type of rugged bodily masculinity. So the man does not simply observe nature from a distance, but immerses himself into it, putting his own body at risk. So this is highlighted by the very often shaky sort of GoPro footage, which functions as a marker of authenticity. I've been there. I've struggled, let's say, with a monster myself. So it's not just a detached scientist telling that. Also, titles like a 12-foot python attacked my dog frame the hunt as a real physical contest where injury is possible and the courage is sort of required. But this rugged masculinity can be very often seen as softened and moralized through various things, through the moral duty, as we said, but also through the relationship with another type of animal, which is his own dogs. So the death of Otto, who was the main dog, and the memorial videos, or several actually memorial videos, is some of the most powerful articulation of this softening. The dogs, and Otto in particular, is often referred to as a pioneer, which invokes a sort of frontier mythology and settler colonial heroism. While the framing of this video, this memorial video, constructs grief for a dog as equivalent to mourning a brother in arms, so a sort of military camaraderie, if you want, which is at play between the hunters and the dogs, right? So the new dogs are then trained as successors. Also, at the same time, this camaraderie is expanded to the human crew of Trapper Mike, which he often refers to as the boys, who are the students within this order, so the inheritors of a tradition of wilderness stewardship that is masculine, caring, and sort of divine in some ways. So the fourth discourse that we identified concerns in many ways the platform itself. Hosting this kind of images in YouTube in a platform whose community guidelines prohibit, quote, graphic content that features animals is quite striking. YouTube makes an exception for activities classified as traditional or standard practices, which include hunting. But this means that this type of gore imagery around pythons, iguanas, and hogs is permitted to circulate freely, and their killing becomes not only morally justified, so looking at this type of images we become incentivized, but also institutionally sanctioned by the platform's architecture, and especially the comments, which we can see as functioning as a site of meaning as well, where viewers overwhelmingly reaffirm the discourses shown in the videos, so congratulating Trapper Mike and his crew. Um, Now, a few things regarding a few concluding thoughts, if you want. The study examined how this YouTube channel, Python Cowboy, constructs invasive species as monstrous and killable figures through these four discourses, so killability and monstrification, vigilante, stewardship and patriotic duty, wilderness masculinity and dogma and ethics, and finally gore as a sort of ethical spectacle. So these discourses articulate what we call a politics of nativity, which is a hegemonic formation rendering certain animals not only killable but celebratable in their death. Just to reiterate that the material dimension of this conflict exists, so species are competing for resources in the Everglades, but the narrativation of this conflict systematically foregrounds dividing lines or an antagonistic frontier, constructing the hunter as a sort of patriotic savior, rendering absent the histories of the pet trade, or of the global commodity chains, or the climate change, and so on. That in many ways have produced the so-called invasions in the first place. In this sense, these politics of nativity exclude or obscure the fact that the human being may be one of the most, not one of the most, but probably the most invasive species in the era of the Anthropocene. And by obscuring this fact, they channel a type of ecological anxiety against the invasive other into spectacles of gore sociality that are at once entertaining, morally reassuring, and politically convenient. So this was the presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to discussing this work with you.